Hello, I'm Mary Scott from Dodge City Community College. I will be starting us off on my science use, mainly anatomy and physiology of the Openstax, and then Bader will talk about his math experience. Openstax, if you are not familiar with it, is a source for open textbooks, OER, Open Education Resource textbooks. I'm not going to go into a great detail of how it started. They're based down in Rice University, but they were able to, among many grant donors to them, including the Gates Foundation, were able to start making textbooks that were available free over the internet or through the internet, free for download. And that is where I kind of came in on choosing the Openstax textbook. The reason I chose an open education resource was sort of accidental. 8 years ago, when I came to Dodge City Community College, the textbook that was being used for anatomy and physiology was above the reading level of my students. It was designated or designed for students that had more biochemistry, more science background, rather than a foundational anatomy and physiology class. What I also discovered was the cost was prohibitive. My students were needing to rent it for $100 a semester or buy it for a couple $100. That was just for the textbook. That was not anything extra. It was not being updated regularly. There were some inaccuracies in it. If I went to something electronic online, it wouldn't be available after the end of the class. So I needed something that my students could have access to. This is in part how I ended up discovering Openstax. When I found it, it met my needs for my students. At the time I switched the textbooks, less than 10% of my students were reading the textbook. My best students were in that small percentage. And even for them, it was, Dr. Scott, we can't read the textbook until after you explain it in class, after you've talked about it, then it's readable. So something needed to be done. Now, I just finished up the most recent reading survey, and last semester in the fall, I had 39% of my Anatomy and Physiology 1 students reading the textbook at some point. Doesn't mean they read it cover to cover, chapter and verse, but at some point they picked up, they read the textbook. So 39% to maybe 50% reading the textbook, a lot better than 10%. However, this semester, and I'm going to show you the feature that I think is making a big difference for my students. I have 75% of my Anatomy and Physiology 1 students are currently reading at least some part of the textbook, and 93% of my Anatomy and Physiology 2 students are reading at least something from the textbook. So big change, and that is one of the reasons why I went to something that was at my students' reading level, as well as was freely available. Now, Openstax is saving students money. You will hear this over and over with the open education resources. We are saving students money. This is not, this figure of they've surpassed $1 billion in textbook savings is not just from anatomy and physiology textbook, but this is overall for the university textbooks that they have made available. Now, that doesn't mean that my class is free. But what I did was I took that money that my students were spending on a textbook, and now they invest $25 a semester basically in visible body courseware that allows them to download a visible body app that gives them access to videos, quizzes that I don't see. I can make quizzes that I do see. And it also serves as my online lab for my online students. It allows them to study the anatomy outside of my lab, outside of class. And so I have a better product using the OER that costs my students less than if I had a textbook plus the extra. And that's how I've ended up here. This is just the science textbooks that you're seeing on the screen that are available currently at Openstax. I've starred the two that we are using here at Dodge City Community College. Anatomy and Physiology, of course, mine, we've been using for 8 years plus now here. Biology, the second edition for more for majors. We are actually using for both non-majors biology, our plant and animal biology class and cell biology class. So that's only been for like the last 3 years or so when we had a change in staffing. I used it for the plant and animal when I had to teach that last spring. So those are the textbooks that are available for science. If you go to the site, you will see that there are a lot more textbooks available in other areas. Their initial goal was to make available those freshman, sophomore level classes that would take care of community colleges and universities. A lot of colleges here in Kansas, if you're not already familiar with it, are using the Openstax textbooks. The Anatomy and Physiology one has been very popular, which has been a positive change. This is to take you to the site, because what I wanted to show you is that one of the problem for some of the open education resources textbooks is that you may not have available all those extra little things that help make your life as a teacher a little bit easier. That's the nice thing about Openstax. And in fact, Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, they're having their creation on virtually. I hope someday to get there in person, where teachers can gather and work on additional products for the Openstax textbooks. But anyway, when I go to for my Anatomy and Physiology textbook, you have to have a sign-in. There are resources that are available to the students, so there are extra online things for them. But it will take you to your instructor resources, which include, if you like, the cartridge inserts that you can use. They have the getting started guide to help guide you to it. There are PowerPoint slides. Now for the biology, anatomy, and physiology, these slides are basically the diagrams and pictures that are in the textbook. I have never relied on just PowerPoints that a textbook provides. I like to find my own pictures and things. Biology, A&P is very picture, and so I've never just used those, but they have PowerPoint slides. Solution guides are available, answers to questions. New things that they have added include the testable images. The diagrams are now available for you to download blank, so you don't have to go and blank them out. And so if you want to insert those on a lecture exam, or I've actually made those available on Canvas for my students who like to have something to fill in or write on. For some of my students, that's how they like to study. And so you can use those in some different ways. Guided lecture notes. I experimented with those last semester. Some of them are outlines of the chapters that leave blanks where students can fill in. They kind of follow my study guide pretty well, and so I was hoping it might help some of my students who struggle with taking notes. It is still something that you can investigate. Other guided lecture notes are more of a condensed version of the chapter. There's a couple of chapters in there, like a rapid neurologic exam, that are very hard to have guided notes for. But if the student is looking for a shorter form to read, that can be also a source. But this is my new best friend, Google Docs customization, because what has happened with this is you can put in a request to get your textbook or portions of it in Google Doc forms. And what this has done, I'm going to take you to my class here in Canvas, is I have, it took a while, but I made requests basically for the entire textbook, portions of it, leaving out a few things. And what happens is this Google Doc form then comes out in, do it that way. Okay, here we go. Let's see if this is going to show up here. Okay, are you seeing a Google Doc form right now? All right, good. What happens with this is it comes out in a much shorter form. Oh, this is the guided notes. I hit the wrong button. Okay, we're going to try this again. Okay, I'm going to try not to lose anybody. How do I get out of here? Oh dear. Okay, stop that share. Get rid of that one. Okay, new share. Go back to share. Okay. I downloaded the guided notes. Okay, that was your guided notes. I wasn't going to take your time up showing you that. So now I'll show you what I wanted to show you. The Google Docs comes out, then has a 4 to 5 pages of the textbook. And so rather than having, say, 50 pages or 25 pages or having, you know, half the textbook for your A&P 1, it has put that reading it down into kind of bite-sized pieces, I guess would maybe be the word for it. Okay, now maybe. Okay, now can you see that? Homeostasis. All right. And so it's the textbook, but it's in a Google form. And what I have done is I have made pre-lecture assignments, short video, reading from the textbook that summarizes that important concept for the day. And in this case, for their very first lecture at A&P 1, it was only 3 pages here. That would get them the key, or 4 pages, that would get them the key points of what they needed to have done so that they might be ready to ask questions. And 50% of my students are saying this is the way they prefer to read in, is the Google documents. And so, like I said, I think this is my best friend. I think this is why I'm seeing that increased reading level. And we don't have time to talk about why that is, because I need to turn this over to Bader. So that's, I wanted to make sure you knew this is a new thing for Openstax, and I am really enjoying it. So you're on, Bader.
Okay. So let me share my screen. Hello, everybody. My name is Bedr Abu Khadir, and I'm a math instructor at Fort Hays State University. So I have a master's degree in science and mathematics from Western Illinois University, and another one in education from Fort Hays State University. And I'm currently a PhD student at KSU in curriculum and instruction. I'm really interested in open education resources. I'm planning to do my dissertation probably in one topic of that. Every 3-5 years, usually in our department at Fort Hays in math department, we go over a book cycle, which is basically assessed the book we used through the 3 to 5 years and check the homework system. We try to check the prices, the software used, and the tech support we had, and try to improve the choice of the book we are using in our pedagogies. 4 years ago as well, I've been offered by Dr. Keith Dreiling, the chairperson of our math department, to develop an online package of liberal arts math at that time. Nowadays, we call it contemporary math in our school. So I was looking for a lot of resources to settle on as a textbook to use in the online teaching, and I didn't make up my mind yet at that time. And consequently, at that time, I attended OER KBOR, which happened to be at Fort Hays State University and was organized by Claire Nickerson, our librarian at Fort Hays State University. And that was the first time I was introduced to Openstax. And they showed a real book. It's called College Algebra, and this is the first time I seen a real book, Open Education Resources real book. And we had the opportunity to review it, and we got paid actually to write our review for that book. Okay, so I went to Openstax website to find a textbook for contemporary math in particular. And unfortunately, I couldn't find a book for that particular topic. So, and I was teaching pre-calculus as well. So I found a book for pre-calculus. So I have decided to look at the pre-calculus book. And from there, I decided to pick it up, and I asked our chair for permission to pilot it and see if it's gonna work for a couple of years, because our pre-calculus usually just offered in fall semester on campus, but it's offered every semester online. So he agreed to pilot it for a couple of years. And for that reason, I had also to find a homework software system to go with it, because we were using my MATLAB from Pearson. So I have to substitute that as well. So looking at the Openstax, as you will see later on, that they have a lot of allies for the software system. And I just picked something that is very easy to use, which was Rover, and it is really affordable. It was around $25 instead of paying almost $120 in person. And that was a success for me to start with, just to cut the price for the students. So I'm using it for a couple semesters now, for a couple fall semesters, and we are planning next semester to use the whole open source for the other two sections we have that taught by other two colleagues. And we also decided to improve the open education resources as a whole course by using a free software, totally free software, which I did use this semester with my contemporary math. And I have an experience with, so I think it's going to work fine with the pre-calculus once we settle on the whole modules we're going to do for the pre-calculus. My personal lesson I learned from using the open education resources, it is really not an easy task to start with. So you have to have a lot of time to search and a lot of time to prepare for it. Well, the adoption as well happens usually outside the class and inside the class, because a lot of times you want to use some ready material, and sometimes you have to prepare your own. So get ready to do that as well, because it is like a package. You have to prepare it for yourself or for the audience you have. So sometimes it is, a lot of my colleagues say it's not good because I'm going to spend time, I'm not paid off. But at the other side, if you look at it, you can customize it the way you want it for your audience every time you teach different students. Now, the adoption for the open source education usually has 6 factors that affect it. Sometimes it's outside of your spectrum, sometimes it is up to you. So starting from the one that you can control, which is the volition, that having the desire from the own educator to use an open education resources, and moving forward for the outside or external effect for the use of open education resources, which is the availability of the open education resources, the capacity of using it, because even if it is there, sometimes it is harder to use, sometimes it's easier to use. Then there is the awareness, and this is what our school trying to do nowadays. They want everybody to use open education resources to cut the cost, especially everything going up roof with the prices nowadays. The permission, we have to know like what could we use and what couldn't we use. Then the access to the hardware, to the software, to the computer, and this is a lot of times it's out of the instructors, because some students, I really did have some students who did not have a laptop. So you have to have very open-minded toward this. One reason I really did, before I even used Openstax, I looked up on my phone because I think the future is going to be the phone. Your phone is going to be your computer. And they do have the Openstax book I used in the phone. So this is really nice feature. It's an app. You can download it on the phone and you can use it on the go. Okay. Now, of course, one of the main purpose of using open education resources is save money. And as in the opening webinar for our summer, Mark Faber said that, and usually in the federal estimation of the saving, the students usually every semester use almost $600 a semester. So that's around $4,000 to $5,000 save if the students goes to school for 4 years. And nowadays they spend more time going to school, so that will be more saving. Now, being a leader also in switching process, that will help me help other colleagues in our department as I'm doing right now because for example, our computer science department, they are trying to move to open education resources, and Claire Nickerson, our librarian, also helping us finding resources because it's really not easy to find the one you are going to use because it's going to be a collective of different resources and it's not a whole package ready as a commercial software does. Also, it helped me trying to create some surveys, even though it is really basic surveys, but it helped me see the process of doing these surveys and the permission to get from the school to do these surveys. And all this process, it's a really a big process. It's not really a small one, so you have to really get prepared to do these kind of surveys. Also, since I am a PhD student, that helped me doing study research interviews with other colleagues to see the and some observation with other colleagues to see why there is resistance or there is acceptance through the educators to use open education resources. Now also I connected with couple educators in different discipline that also they're using open education resources, and they give me some help of how to use things and how to put things in a better perspective. Now, I'm going to show some demos here to show you how I got to Openstax and what resources you can use inside the Openstax. Before doing this, but I just want to remind you that I have the email address, and Dr. Mary also has the email address. You can contact us if you are thinking to moving of open education resources. We are happy to help you with that. Okay. So opening the Openstax, and that's the first thing you're gonna see if you go Openstax. Basically, I registered with them, and this is optional, but I registered with them for a reason, because some of the resources you will have, they want to make sure you are an educator, you are not a student and taking the educator resources. So it's like a security purpose for them. So the students don't go online and spread the whole answers for exams or all these kind of things if you prepare it, which happens quite often. And there are a lot of professional websites nowadays for these reasons. So you have to be very careful with, and you have to keep improving your exams, changing them all the time. So if you click on the PreCalculus, you will see over here right away to the left that you can download the book as a PDF. And this is really nice feature, as Dr. Murray was saying, that you can get the section of the book, the exact section of the book you want inside your modules, so you can precisely be what they want to see when they want to see it. And as I said before, they can view the book also online. And for the instructor, there is students resources. I will start with the student resources because a lot of the students always think about the answers. They want to see the answers, and it provides for them the solution for the odd questions. And for the instructors, now there are a lot of resources for the instructors because there are a lot of educators used this book before. So what they did, basically, a lot of them, they publish it online to help other educators. It's something like teacher to teacher, is something similar to that. And now this is the technology partners they have, and you can see they have a lot of partners here. It depends of how much money you want your student to spend for the software, and you see a lot of them, they have good ratings. So even though there is commercial companies, even commercial companies, they want piece of the pie and they are working with OER, so they want to be behind. And you see like Alex, which is McGraw-Hill, is very big company. You can work with it if you are familiar with it. But I picked one, which is Rover, and I will show you the one I picked, Rover. I just didn't integrate it inside the Blackboard, which is the LMS I have, because once you integrate things inside the Blackboard, it's going to get more complicated unless you have a technical help with you. If you have some problems, then they can sort it out for you. Especially you need an administration rights to do that in LMS in the Blackboard. So that's why I didn't do it. But okay, now if you go to the open education resources provided for you, basically there's a lot of educators, they put resources for you. This is include videos and all that stuff. I just want to show you one of them. And if you click on the instructor resources, as Mary was showing you, there's a cartridge. And when I hear the word cartridge, I remember Atari and Nintendo I used like 30 years ago. So these cartridges you can plug in the Blackboard or the Canvas, and they can do you like integrating. Now, how much integration you're gonna have, this is always relative, because I work with a lot of commercial companies like Pearson, like Hawks, and like Alex, like McGraw-Hill, and they have their integration is not always 100%. That's why you always need technical person from the school you are teaching at to help you out with the integration process. So that's why I was hesitant to do that with this particular software I did. Now they have also the PowerPoints, as Mary showed you, and the PowerPoint slide they have is not fully developed, and you need to work on them, because most of the PowerPoints they have basically out of the book. So you really need to work on them. They don't have, for example, the exams. You have to prepare your own exams. You have to prepare your own activities. You have to prepare your own projects, and so forth. So you need really to spend some time preparing for the class ahead of time. Okay. Now the Rover software I used. So I contacted the Rover directly from that website, and they did a meeting for me to demo, to show me what they have for half an hour before I decided, because I wasn't like 100% committed to them, to that particular software. I was gonna see it first, then decide from there. But to be honest, once I saw it the first time, I said, okay, I'm gonna use it and give it a try. And I was happy with it for a couple semesters. The only reason I'm moving away from it is that I want to have a totally free software as well. So looking at my course in 2021, I used it in fall 2021. Notice that the software over here, it's all on the cloud, so we will have a little bit lag, and this is sometimes irritate the students, especially with the new generation, that they don't have enough patience for everything. So I tell them always just wait for it and it will show up for you guys. And I will show you one of the homework system. Let's do the complex number homework system. You notice that it's not all multiple choice. It's not all fill in the blank. They have something, and that's why I want to try it, to be honest. This is first time I see software that they do step-by-step approach. So I tried a lot of approaches in my pedagogical methods of teaching. And we have also like, we have like certification methods we used before. We used like multiple choice. We used to fill up the blank, especially in the software. It's something not easy to do. And it was really nice work. And they have also like a variation of the questions. And they have a video for the question the students can go to and see it. If you click on it, it's a video, they will help them. and most of the software now in commercial, they do that. You can put your own video, you can put your own problem, you can put a discussion board about it, you can advance many things, you can do a lot of the things in this software they provide. But I want to show you like the step-by-step approach they have is a little bit different, and I haven't seen it done in many software. That's why that is one of the reasons I picked it up to start with. And trust me, it's not an easy, smooth ride for the students the first time they do it, because the students usually they want to do it in one step, or they want to do it or just want to get the answer and do it. So if I pick any questions, for example, this variation. So if I go to the student view, so you see over here, they have another software embedded inside this software called Virtual Tutor, which is a little bit different over here. So for example, if I want to solve this, a lot of students, they will solve it like this, 2/3 plus 18/3i. So this is the first step. Then you say, okay, well, what is step you want to do? So if I want to show the solution, so it says the solution is 2/3 plus 6i. So the student didn't simplify, basically, so he needs to go more steps. So what this does for them, the student is not going to take 100% out of this. He's going to take, for example, 98 out of 100 in this equation, or if the question is out of 10, he's going to get 9 out of 10 because he did not simplify toward that. So they teach them to be to do the steps and be patient with entering the answers. So they slow them down a little bit. So I have students at the beginning, they were complaining, but then it's a learning curve. They get used to it and they know what to do next to it. So most of the stuff in Rover I've seen as it's a very good software. It is not expensive nowadays. They charge almost $25 for it for my student. But I decided to go a different route, as I mentioned before, because I really wanted something totally free for the students. And for that reason, I had to attend different webinars to see other schools who really implemented free open software. And one of the seminars I attended in 2021 was with Dr. Andrew Bennett, which is he's a professor at Kansas State University in the math department. They are using my Open Math, and it's a free software. And this is what is going to be my talk in the next speech at 2 o'clock. So please try to attend. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that lovely presentation from both of you. I think we have a few minutes here for questions.
Oh, any questions?
I'll ask one. How did your students, how do your students feel about Openstax? Are they comfortable with the technology and everything? I know, Mary, you mentioned in the comments that some of yours read it on their phone.
Yes.
It's pretty, has it been a good transition for them?
It has been a big change. When I first started using this 8 years ago, I had more students who wanted the old-fashioned print copy, and they could get it Back then, it was $80 to buy the textbook from Amazon. That price has come down to $50, but that is the rare exception. Now they feel very comfortable reading it on their phone, their laptop, whatever. With the COVID, some of the grant money that we got, we have more students with laptops and on, so they're much more comfortable than they were at first. I cannot believe that there are students that write their term papers on their phone. That's not me, but yeah, they're very comfortable. They do have the option of, if you have the iPad, you can download an iBooks version for like $5, and it has some interaction capabilities on it. But for the most part, they're just happy to read it on their phones, and maybe that's why they like the Google Docs and all. But yeah, no, they're more comfortable with this than me. In fact, I'm almost 60, and I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve, but if I run into tech problems, usually one of my students in the class can solve it for me.
Mary, I'm curious about the cost to the students. What is the cost of this textbook to the students?
Zero, because they just
Really?
access it online and download it with it in Canvas. If they're reading as Google Docs, zero. They can actually print it off for themselves if they want to, like in our it's not Student Success Center anymore, but basically there, or the library. Some of them will print it off at work, will allow them to do that. What will cost them is the Visible Body app that I have them use. Now, the cost is zero in the long run if they will do what I ask them to do. That $50 to, I think it's going up to $60 now cost is for 2 semesters, gets them through the year, gets them through both semesters. Part of that allows them to download the apps for free. Those apps by themselves run more than the $25. And so if they will download those apps to an electronic device they're going to have for a while, those are free until their device goes away. And also I encourage them, if you have a laptop or a desktop at home, download it to that. This is a great teaching tool for them, or review tool, because then when they aren't online, that's the disadvantage, is they can't get to the internet, they can't use it. But with the Visible Body app, even if they're not online, they can be studying their anatomy, they can be watching the videos on their physiology. And especially for my athletes that might be away from the internet, sometimes it's like you have no excuse. It's there for you to study. So that's the benefit of not having an expensive textbook. They have something that they can take with them out of my classroom that's going to help them. And most of them are headed to some kind of allied health or nursing. And if they're going to go into nursing, they need to know their anatomy. So it's great for reviewing.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'm going to ask another question. You may not know this. Have either of you seen an increase of like student interest or enrollment because they know the course materials are essentially free? Do you see any of that impact, or do you know that off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, I can't say for sure. However, when I went to this and it was zero cost compared to $200 textbook, I had a couple of my dear students who were on our little talk radio that said, you come take anatomy and physiology here because we have no cost. You get a free textbook. Dr. Scott made that possible. And our enrollment has gone up. I can't say that I've been a great influence for that, but I think that there are so many factors in student success. And if they know that you care about how much they're having to spend, and you've gone through this effort to help them succeed, to help them have a cheap access to a textbook, because the studies are there. If you've attended the KBOR, OER things that we had, students are more successful if they have access to a textbook. The students know, they know we care about them, and then they're more likely to drop by your office for help and tutoring and all. So even if I can't say my enrollment's gone up, if my students are more successful that I do have, I'm happy.
Wonderful.
My part, sorry,
That's-
from my part, they have to take the class. It's a general education math classes. So So for me, this is not a measurement of using the Openstax or not using the open education resources. For me, mostly it is saving the students money in long term if they have to take two, because I know for sure they have, at least they have to take two math education math classes. So that saved them at least $300 to $400, which is fair for them to use. Sorry, Dr. Shen, go ahead.
Oh, that's great. And that is why we do this. That's why we have this movement. Wonderful. Thank you all for your presentation. Thank you all who attended. And we are at the 12:41 mark, so we will close for today. Hope to see you.
If you have any questions, email, happy to answer.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here.